a bit of trouble of getting one of the counselors logged in, so that's why we actually need to wait for her. So she's ready. You're good? Okay. I would now like to call the August 23rd, 2022 Longmont City Council regular session to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Peck.
Present.
Councilmember Hidalgo-Faring.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Waters. Here. Councilmember Yarbrough.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder to the public, anyone wishing to speak at first call public invited to be heard will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at the first public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their names on the list will have the opportunity to speak during public hearing items this evening or at the final call public invited to be heard at the end of the meeting, and you can speak on any item at that point. May I have a motion to approve the August 9th minutes?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Waters, seconded by Councilor Hidalgo-Faring. Let's vote. Went away. Yes. No, Hidalgo-Faring. So that carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on our agenda tonight, if I can open this page, do we have any agenda revisions or items that councilors would like to put on, direct staff to put on future agendas? Seeing no one, Councilor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Can I ask a question first, and then I'm going to make a motion?
Absolutely.
So the question would be to Harold. Harold, if we direct staff, if we direct staff to take money out of our contingency fund and send it or direct it to LHA for the purpose of funding transportation, with a plan that was presented by the Advisory Council for the last half of this year and through next year, there's no problem with the transaction. Would that come back as an IGA, or that would come back to us in that form?
Yeah, that would have to come back as an IGA.
But to get it started, you need a motion. So I'm going to move that we commit $40,000 out of our contingency fund to jumpstart the transportation plan that was presented by the advisory board and to fund it through the end of this year and through 2023 if necessary as we anticipate the LHA budget.
I'll second that. It's open for discussion. Councilor Waters, do you want to explain why this came about and other than just through the advisory board? Oops.
Yeah, having served on the LHA board for a while, there was a time when the housing authority was more active and more responsive in terms of transportation needs, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which was the pandemic that had a role in that. That service dropped away, and what was proposed by members of the advisory board isn't anytime, anywhere transportation. It's a schedule that helps get residents, and many of our LHA residents are dependent upon public transportation from their residences to grocery stores or those places where they need to do business to live their lives. And that doesn't exist right now. And it really does leave our residents in a lurch. So I'm confident that the kind of contract that the current form of the housing authority could work out with the suppliers of transportation would be more reliable and more accountable and more affordable than it was once upon a time. And I think this is the time to move forward with this, knowing that as we get into LHA 2023, whether or not we can cover it in that cost in 2023 or in subsequent years, but we ought to get at least our residents through 2023, from now to the end of 22 and through 2023, and we can help subsidize that.
Great, thank you. So this was brought to me as well by one of the members of the board, and their contract or their conversation was with VIA. And one of the reasons, outside of what Councilor Waters mentioned, for the cutback on the transportation for the affordable housing residents was that RTD had raised the cost to VIA to the extent where it wasn't affordable anymore. So this is to help bridge that gap, and hopefully we can find a better way to make this happen after 2023. So I think this is a great program. Councilor Martin, did you have?
No, I don't have a comment on this. I was in the queue to make another motion for an agenda revision.
Okay, well then let's vote on this motion to fund Longmont Housing Authority out of the council contingency fund $40,000 to provide transit to the LHA residents through the year 2023. Great, so that passes unanimously. Congratulations, ladies. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Just this week, a ballot initiative achieved the sufficient number of signatures to put on this November ballot a measure asking Colorado to dedicate revenues to fund housing projects, affordable housing specifically. And we've checked with the staff, and they think that the constraints it imposes on the money are something that the city can manage. And so I would like to see a resolution brought before council when the staff is ready to allow the city council to decide whether to resolve to support voting yes on this initiative.
You second that?
I'll second.
Okay. So Councilor Martin proposed the motion for a resolution supporting the affordable housing bill?
It's a ballot initiative.
Ballot initiative.
At the Colorado state level.
Oh, okay, thank you. And that's been seconded by Councilor Hidalgo-Faring. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
I've been watching it.
And that carries unanimously. I also have something I would like to direct staff to bring back on during the budget process. It's Municipal Code 4.04.080, the sales tax taxable items. There are three things in this municipal code. There's lodging services, the intrastate telecommunication services, and the gas and electric service for gas and electricity. So if you could bring those back for discussion and explanation during the budget process. Can I have? I do. Okay, so it's been seconded by Councilor Waters. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the city manager's report.
No report, Mayor, Council.
Okay, thank you. We now have a couple of, under special reports and presentations, we have a couple of proclamations. The first one is a proclamation recognizing management and engineering services and Taco Star as recipients of the EPA Award for Preventing Pollution in Longmont, Colorado. So I will read this, and then if the recipients will have anything they would like to add, comments, and then if you want, we can take a picture. So I'll have to read it again. A proclamation recognizing management and engineering services and Taco Star as recipients of the EPA Award for Preventing Pollution in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas Management and Engineering Services, LLC, and Taco Star are environmental leaders in our community. And whereas Management and Engineering Services, LLC, and Taco Star are recipients of the prestigious United States Environmental Protection Agency Award for their distinguished efforts to prevent pollution. And whereas Management and Engineering Services, LLC, and Taco Star have continued to show a commitment to reduce, eliminate, and prevent pollution while operating their businesses in Longmont, Colorado. And whereas Management and Engineering Services, LLC, and Taco Star are intricate parts of the Longmont business community, now therefore I, Joan Peck, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim recognition of Management and Engineering Services, LLC, and Taco Star as environmental protection leaders in Longmont, and call upon the residents of our community to recognize this important achievement. Would you mind telling us exactly what your companies are and what you do when you come up to speak? That would be great.
Well, first, Mayor, thank you very much for honoring us with this proclamation. Can
I interrupt for just a moment? Would you mind giving us your names?
Certainly. Craig Erickson, and owner and president of Management and Engineering Services. We've been in business for 30 plus years, and our offices have been in Longmont for 25 of those years. And we're very proud of what we have done in helping other companies within the state of Colorado achieve a new environmental level of performance. We're members of the Colorado Environmental Leadership Program at the gold level, so we're really dedicated to doing what we can. And Melissa, would you like to add a few words?
Sure. I would just like to add that the EPA Region 8 Award was given to 4 recipients in the state. And, of course, 2 of us are in Longmont, which is really great. And then one of our clients, Leprino Foods, that we actually consult with, also won, which is up in Greeley. And they're the largest manufacturer of mozzarella in the country.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah. Is Taco Star here? If you would give us your names and tell us what your business is.
Hi, my name is Iris. I wasn't prepared to come and talk with you guys today. I thought it was going to be just like a picture and go home. But thanks for this award. That's pretty special for the Taco Star. It's a business that is run for Mexicans, all of them. It is a family restaurant. And we're pretty happy to work here in Longmont area. It was a hard time for us to try to make all the improvements. It wasn't easy because everything we have to pay for it, but thanks for the city that we can make some of the changes. I mean, 70% discount, or like, what is it? Like, so we pay the other part, right? But it was only the 30% part, so which is not really bad. So thank you. Thanks for this, and thanks everyone that is working for the community and for the Hispanic business community in general. We represent the 30% here in the area, which is a lot for the economy here in the area. So thanks for this.
Congratulations. Would you care for a picture?
She was part of the process, so I was like, Francie, you should come with me, please.
And what is your name?
My name is Iris Prieto.
And your friend, your partner there?
Francie Jaffe, Sustainability Coordinator. Taco Star participated in the Sustainable Business Program.
Fantastic. Okay, you ready for a picture?
on in the center, right here, right in the center, and the council's going to join you, and we'll get some pictures. Kind of stand you from behind. All right, we're going to need a couple rows, though. Let's get all smushed in here. We're close. Keep smushing just a little bit there. There we go. Can you get that?
Yes.
Are you good?
Yes.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. All right, very good. Wait. All right, very good. Congratulations.
So our next proclamation is about recognizing, I'll just read it. This is a proclamation recognizing and supporting the global treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas the United Nations Assembly Nuclear Weapon Ban Treaty has been ratified by enough of the world's governments that it entered into force on January 22nd, 2021. And whereas prior to the treaty's adoption, nuclear weapons were the only weapons of mass destruction not subject to a comprehensive ban, and whereas the new agreement fills a significant gap in international law, it prohibits nations from developing, testing, producing, manufacturing, transferring, possessing, stockpiling, using, or threatening to use nuclear weapons, or allowing nuclear weapons to be stationed on their territory. And whereas the treaty also prohibits nations from assisting, encouraging, or inducing anyone to engage in any of these activities. Now therefore I, Joan Peck, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim recognition and support of the Global Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in Longmont, and call upon the residents of our community to join fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and supporting this important movement. Would you care to make a few comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, my name is Chris Allred, commenting on behalf of the Colorado Coalition for Prevention of Nuclear War. Mayor, council members, thank you all very much for your leadership to pass this proclamation tonight. It's a courageous statement. It's extraordinary. It means so much, and I've prepared a brief statement just to mark the occasion. Longmont now stands in solidarity with communities across the nation who believe in a world without nuclear weapons. Just taking a moment to think about what that means, just hearing you speak, Mayor, it really means a lot to me as a nuclear activist. At the recent City Council meeting on August 9th, the 77th anniversary of Nagasaki, I mentioned a few stories of local activism regarding nuclear weapons. This includes the popular movement to close the Rocky Flats nuclear bomb plant that went on for about a decade or more, with a year of civil disobedience starting in 1978 and 79, leading up to an FBI raid that finally closed the plant in 1989. And also a series of nonviolent actions which went out to the Nevada test site. But many of the activists who participated in that were based in Boulder and Longmont, this region, this community. And they went out and hiked through the desert at night to ground zero, where a nuclear bomb was going to be detonated. These were underground tests at the time, but nevertheless, still very dangerous to be near ground zero. And I know several are still involved in this community. And they're very modest, humble individuals. One time they went out to that Nevada test site and they actually detonated the bomb while they were out near ground zero. They survived and are still active today. And there's a much longer story here, but I just wanted to recognize some of their stories and the legacy of activism in this region. And the Council's action tonight honors this legacy of nonviolent protest in our community. And there are many activists from the 70s and 80s who still live in this region who are very thankful to see this tonight. And I would like to dedicate this to their steadfast activism. And I would like to recognize a member of the Colorado Coalition for Prevention of Nuclear War, Mary Casper, who passed away recently. She gave much of her life to stop the use of nuclear weapons, and I know she'd be very grateful for this tonight. Thank you all very much for your time and good work for this community.
Thank you. Would you care to have a picture taken? Or
That'd be great. Thank you.
It's a good strategy. Okay. Need everybody to move over this way so that kind of the center is under the sign here. This way. This way. Father Tim. There you go. Much better. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Bringing it to us.
So now we're at the public invited to be heard portion of our agenda, and I see on the list only one person, Abe. Is that you? Come on up, Abe. We need your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Here, my name is Abe. I'm here, Longmont resident. I can write that down after, if that's all right.
That would be great.
Just some housekeeping things with the city. I'm from a neighborhood here in Mountain View and 15th Street. There is a situation there, as you guys have known, with increasing graffiti throughout the city and with recent events that have happened related to some of these names associated with the graffiti. There is a parking lot right around the neighborhood of Dogwood and Emery. There's 2 that are public, one that is almost really forgotten, and this neighborhood has also seen the increase of population within the area. So obviously along the street, a lot of the fire hydrants on Mountain View going from Emery southbound, visibility is super hard to see both right and left. I know there are various apartment complexes with probably not enough parking situation. So yeah, visibility is hard. I believe it would be appropriate, just as they've updated the lights on Main and Mountain View for left turning lanes, for there to be a no parking sign from certain distance or more enforcement to fire hydrant due to visibility. Also with parking situation with other apartments with that one lot in the neighborhood. A lot of our ambient population is setting up there, and it'd be great to be able to lead them to the appropriate resources, of course, but also to bring more visibility to the area. A lot of those parking situations are from apartment complexes across the street that didn't even, I don't know who created this urban planning. There's no sidewalk on the north side of Dogwood Lane, and that would have helped so much decrease in crime, the drop in pollution in that parking lot that I often clean along with other neighbors. And also the lot is in disrepair. Is my understanding it's a public lot, seeing as though the city is making very new improvements along with the little inner thing in front of the new apartments on South Main. You know, some new pavement would obviously be long overdue there. I think that's the first pavement that was put there when the neighborhood was first created. So yeah, that's what I'm bringing to attention. The people in the neighborhood, this is a working neighborhood. I think it's fair that they come home to rest in a neighborhood with dignity and enough calmness for them to rest, to go back to work. That's all I have to bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Abe. I'm going to give the sign-up sheet to the city clerk. If you would go over and sign it up and perhaps put your address and perhaps your phone number, and someone will contact you. Oh, yellow sheet. So seeing no one else on public invited to be heard, I close the first public invited to be heard. We are now at the consent agenda. Would you mind reading the items into the consent agenda, please?
Mayor, item 9A is Resolution 2022-129, a resolution of the Longmont City Council urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on the ballot question concerning issuing up to $20 million in bonds payable from the city's storm drainage enterprise revenues to finance improvements to the storm drainage system, including but not limited to completion of the phase of the Resilient St. Vrain project extending from Sunset Street to Hover Street on the November 8, 2022 coordinated municipal election ballot. 9B are resolutions of the Longmont City Council urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on ballot questions concerning charter amendments on the November ballot. Resolution 2022-130 is a resolution of the Longmont City Council urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on ballot issue approving a change to the city's charter to remove outdated language and allow for modernization of the conduct of city business on the November 8, 2022 special municipal election ballot. Resolution 2021-131 is a resolution of the Longmont City Council urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on ballot issue approving a change to allow for prospective vacancies in city elections on the November 8, 2022 special municipal election ballot. 9C is Resolution 2022-132, a resolution of the Longmont City Council authorizing a lease agreement between the City of Longmont as lessee and Big Belly Solar LLC as lessor for smart trash and recycling cans for city parks and municipal facilities. 9D is Resolution 2022-133, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Longmont and the St. Vrain and Left Hand Water Conservancy District for funding for a collaborative water-efficient xeric garden at Sandstone Ranch. 9E is Resolution 2022-134, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city, the state of Colorado, by and through the Department of Natural Resources and Research Services, LLC, for mining reclamation activities at Button Rock. And 9F is approve one capital improvement program project.
Do we have any counselors that want to pull any of these items on the consent agenda? Seeing none. Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Waters to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Martin. Let's vote. And that carries unanimously. So let's see, where are we now? Good heavens, where are we? So the next thing on our agenda is ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. A is 0-2022-32, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022. Is there a staff report on this? No? Okay. Are there any questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing. I would ask for a motion to move this ordinance.
I'll move ordinance 2022-32.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved by Councillor Hidalgo-Faring, seconded by Councillor Yarbrough. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. The second item on the second reading is BO 2022-33, a bill for an ordinance amending title of the Longmont Municipal Code on Revenue and Finance by creating the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Sorry, I kind of messed that up. Do we have a staff report on this? Seeing none, I'll open it up for public hearing. Does anybody in the public like to comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, is there any comments from council? I ask for a motion to move it.
I'll move ordinance 2022-33. Second.
So it's been moved by Councillor Hidalgo-Faring, seconded by Councillor Martin. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. We're now at items removed from the consent agenda. There were none, so we'll go directly to the general business. There's going to be a presentation by David Kennedy for possible amendments to noise code related to motor vehicle noise.
Mayor Peck, City Council, Zach Artis, Public Safety Chief. Dave Kennedy and I are back this evening to talk about the noise ordinance we had brought before you on July 26. You requested it come back for further discussion. We looked into some options. Dave Kennedy has a small presentation he'd like to give to you. What we're seeking tonight is really direction and guidance from council to staff on how you would like us to proceed and move forward with a couple of options, and he'll cover that here in just a moment.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Peck and council members. Thanks so much for having me back tonight to speak on behalf of public safety and bring back for further discussion the proposed changes that were made to the noise ordinance. And let me find my PowerPoint here really quick. There we are. Sorry about that. All right, there we go. There we go. So there's the review of the proposed changes. So tonight, staff is seeking council's direction on whether or not we should either bring back subsection E as originally proposed on July 26th, bring back subsection E to change the amplified sound distance from 25 feet out to 300 feet, as I will discuss a little bit further in the next few slides. Or, as a third option, staff has also included some new information regarding sound camera technology in tonight's presentation. So first up is the original language which was proposed in the July meeting. So the first part of the section E that you see here was the language proposed in July, and I apologize that the underline somehow moved up from where it was on my PowerPoint, but the supposed to be underlined portion is the new language which was added by the legal team to essentially move over amplified sound to be included in the subsection E proposed change to the ordinance. The next slide, as we look at subsection A here, and once again my line is goofy for some odd strange reason, but the first portion that you see is the existing language in the code. The supposed to be underlined portion here is the language that was added by the legal team to specifically remove that amplified sound from sound systems for motor vehicles and move it over into that subsection E category, which we just took a look at. And just in real quick review, so the original language, which was proposed in July, was really due to the fact that public safety staff felt that we needed some means to enforce the noise related to engine and exhaust system noises, not from car audio systems. I can personally say that based on my personal experience, I have issued citations over the years for problem car audio systems under that current subsection A language, and have had no problems with successful prosecution under that subsection. So our problem and lack of enforcement once again, is solely related to engine and exhaust system noise, not car audio system noise. So, and last up is that new technology that I mentioned. So that is the sound technology. The reason public safety staff wanted to include this tonight was that we really wanted to put all options on the table here, is because what we're looking for council is for the future direction of where we're going to go as a city for noise enforcement. Because, you know, I will be candid with council and tell you that right now, the enforcement of noise in regards to engines and exhaust systems is just not happening. So we need to do something other than the nothing. And so we really wanted to explore everything, and that's why we're bringing now this new technology to you to add that to the discussion on the proposed ordinance changes. So you may have seen in some recent headlines, I believe it made the New York Post, Washington Post, and the National Wire. New York City, as well as Knoxville, Tennessee, had rolled out, and you can see a picture of one here on the PowerPoint, these new sound camera systems. We reached out to the manufacturer of these systems, a company called 24 Acoustics. They're located in London in the UK. They showed us a pretty detailed overview of how these camera systems work. But I mean, really to understand how these things work, you need only understand how a speed camera or a red light camera operates, because literally the technology is the same. The only thing that changes is what the device is measuring. Everything else is the same. So when a violation is observed, the camera records a short video. It captures the license plate. Sometimes it captures a video of the person actually driving the vehicle, depending on, you know, how the lighting and all that good stuff is. So all that is the same. You know, the civil fines on the back end, you know, all that would look at that would look the same as well. Of course, there's a lot of future conversation that would have to be had as far as what that looks like, staff time, cost, and all those things. But to kind of get back into exploring this technology, really at the end of the day, like I said before, is the only thing that makes this camera system different and this new technology difference is the ability for the software to not only measure sound from an oncoming vehicle, but and its proprietary technology, of course, is the ability of this camera system now to actually monitor specific vehicles in heavy traffic. So in other words, we could have a 4-lane road, such as, you know, 3rd and Main Street, for example, and it can, not with 100% accuracy, but with reasonable accuracy, actually pinpoint which vehicle is making that loud noise. So because the system's not perfect, and no system is perfect that's currently out there, and this includes the red light and speed cameras, it still takes human review to actually look at each violation that the camera recorded. You know, double check, make sure it is a violation, you know, the camera's working properly, all of that good stuff, and then the civil, you know, penalty could be issued at that point. Something else to note too is just like a speed camera, you know, we can move a speed camera around town. Well, we can't because we don't currently have them, but the technology exists to where you can move a speed camera from a 35-mile-per-hour zone to, say, like a 55-mile-per-hour zone. The same exists with this technology. So if we're moving this camera around to different parts of the city where different noise decibel levels are tolerated over others, say commercial districts obviously can be louder than a residential, we can dial this up or dial it down to trigger the violation based on whatever we decide to set it to. One interesting thing that I found is that when Knoxville, Tennessee did their testing of this camera, they put it in their downtown area, and they actually set their camera at 90 decibels, and 90 decibels is extremely loud. A good analogy that I found online to describe what 90 decibels sounds like would be attending a loud rock concert. So 90 decibels is extremely loud. It's going to cause permanent hearing loss if you're exposed for a long period of time to 90 decibels. So with that threshold at 90 dB, in a period of just a little over 5 months, they recorded 1,300 violations, which I was a little shocked at. So Knoxville's not Longmont, obviously. It's a little bit bigger city, but not a lot. When I looked at their demographics, their population is about 180,000. We're about 100,000, so not all that far off. You know, I didn't look at New York's because obviously that's big city. We're a whole lot different than that, but it'll be interesting to see what we could find in our city if this is something that we decide to pursue. Some of the potential advantages that we see to sound camera technology, I think the first one is probably the most obvious, and that's the fact that this thing can do work 24/7, right? And it's never dependent on an officer's ability to respond and enforce the code changes that we'd previously talked about. You know, with staffing issues, increased, crime right now. This just frees up officer time to focus more on higher priority calls for service as well as other traffic issues. So another I'll say this is a potential advantage because, red light cameras, speed cameras, they've been around for quite some time now. I would say about 30 plus years if I had to guess. And so they've been well studied. One of the most interesting studies that I found was done by CDOT, and they studied the speed cameras being deployed in the city of Denver, and they found that they were proven to actually reduce the number of crashes in the city. We are hopeful that sound camera technology could do the same because of the increased amount of enforcement. We're hopeful that if this is a direction that we decide to go, that we could look at reducing the number of noise violations in the future and obviously thereby enjoying, a more quiet space in our city. This new technology holds a lot of potential. It's new, it's young. One of the, I think, most notable things right now is that there's a lot of talk amongst companies about combining this technology with speed cameras. So in the future, I think we're going to see devices that do both. They're going to capture both sound and they're going to capture speed of vehicles. And, just based on my personal observations and living in this city most of my life, I've observed that extremely noisy vehicles are also frequently speeding. So there's a potential to capture both violations all in the same instance. And one last advantage, and that would be, the potential revenue from the civil fines that are issued due to the cameras. And speaking of money, one last thing I want to mention is what we were quoted by 24 Acoustics for what these cameras cost. Per camera, they cost $31,000, plus there's a monthly service cost of $495, and that's just to provide, the tech support that you need on the back end for any kind of electronic device these days. But the good news is you don't have to commit to buying cameras. The nice thing that this company offered was that we could test a camera. They will mail us one for a cost of $1,500, and we can keep it for 4 weeks. There's no obligation that we commit to purchasing cameras or doing anything in the future, but the reason public safety found this so attractive is what we would really like to do, if this is council's direction, is be able to move forward with that testing, because I think the testing, I think, would be really important in our future decision on whether or not we want to commit to this as a city, as a means of enforcing noise from vehicles, because we'll be able to come back to council and provide, at least some preliminary raw data as far as what we're seeing in the city. For example, maybe we decide to put it at 3rd and Main Street for a week. We can say, well, in that week's period of time, we measured this many violations, at this decibel level. At least give, everybody a good idea and a more accurate picture too than just what everybody's hearing, because I think sometimes, what we hear and maybe what's out there can be different. And it could go either way, right? We could find the problem is much worse than we thought, or we could find out that it's actually not as bad as we thought. And just to be clear, as a side note, we're not suggesting that if we do T&E this camera, we're not suggesting that we're going to issue any fines. We're not going to even issue any warning notices or letters. We just want to get the raw data from the camera to show what we were seeing and test the device, really. Let's see, last slide here. Just in review, to summarize our big question, if you will, the question is on what direction do we want to go? Like I mentioned previously, do we bring back that subsection E as originally proposed for first reading? Do we bring back the modified one to change that distance from 25 feet to 300 feet for those audio systems? Or, and I guess I will say this bullet point here would be or we could do a combination of any of these, would be to direct staff on whether or not we should begin testing sound camera technology for possible future implementation. I believe that's all I have. Thank you, first of all, for your time and consideration and direction moving forward and what we're going to do with noise. I'm ready for any questions council has at this time, and I also have Chief Artist here as well if I don't know the answer.
Thank you, David.
You betcha.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. First of all, I would like to see, I'm the person who said we should include stereo sound because we have a vocal contingency of residents who says we can't enforce that as much. And based on the explanation provided in the packet, that it's not needed for enforceability, I'd like to, retract that and advocate for adoption of the original version, which I first talked to Chief Artis, Chief Sater, and I believe you, Officer Kennedy, and I don't remember your rank. I apologize.
Oh, that's fine.
But a long time ago about the importance of automation, and I learned about this draft ordinance at that time and was all for it. But I just want to say that any kind of automation that we can take advantage of to do the everyday low judgment tasks of catching these relatively minor but extremely important infractions that council members hear about all the time, and that in the case of speeding are, a danger to everybody. We should do that with automation if it works, because we need to have our public safety force focused on things that require human judgment. I hear over and over and over again that we need our officers engaged more. We need to see more of them. And I know you're out there doing everything you can. So we need to let automation do what it's good at so that you can do what only you can do. And that's what I have to say about it. So I would be yes, ignore that part, and oh yes, invest in the automation and do the trial as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Waters?
Thanks. David, could you back up, or Officer Kennedy? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Back. So you want direction on these. So do we need motions then?
Yeah, the options are there. If you would like a motion, then we can discuss it.
Well, then I'm going to move that we direct staff to bring back subsection E as originally proposed on 726 for first reading.
I'll second that. So it's been moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by myself to bring back subsection E. We need to vote on the amendment, and then we're going to, on the motion, and then we'll discuss the motion. Okay. You're right. I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I noted last time that we had this discussion that I was skeptical on the ability of enforcement, but I do agree with the statement that was made earlier that something is better than nothing. And so I'm going to agree and vote yes on this. But I will be very much a proponent of the automation option, because I do think that our officers, generally speaking, have higher priorities in the call logs and things that we hear about than actively hunting down a lot of noise, automobile noise. And so I'm very enthusiastic about the possibility of these cameras, but I will be voting yes.
Is there any other discussion? I would be voting yes as well on this, and I'm very happy that you're bringing back the camera for the trial. I totally support getting the camera to try it out, see what's happening. Technology is the way to go. So let's vote on this motion for subsection E. That carries unanimously. As far as the camera goes, do we just want to give a unanimous direction? Let's just all give a thumbs up if you agree. Is there any discussion on that? So, okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Just a quick question to crunch some numbers in my head. What would the typical fine be?
It varied across the board. When I started looking at other cities, I think I saw as high as $1,000, which seemed a little bit excessive, but I believe Knoxville was at 100.
So, Councilman Rodriguez, Zach Artis, Public Safety Chief, that's an interesting question. The problem we have is we would be the first city in Colorado and the first city that I know of either on the west side of the United States to try this technology out. So the state is very specific when it comes to using red light cameras or speed. Those fines are less than $100 per infraction, and they don't go against your license, so you don't get points against your license if you violate. It's more like a civil infraction. So we would assume, again, we'd have to get some clarification if we decide to move forward with these cameras. We would have to get clarification from the state on how to proceed with these, and right now we're assuming, and it's a big assumption, that they would be very similar to how the operation of a red light camera or a speed camera would operate. And again, almost a civil infraction and less than $100 fine for the noise.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Just a quick question, and it's really for future procurement purposes, but the sound sensors, the video sensors, and the recording device and license plate recognition are all common, or else not needed, for speed cams, red light cams, and the noise sensors. Do we have any understanding of whether any of the vendors of this technology would provide the other uses, red light and speeding, as firmware upgrades, or would we need to invest in multiple cameras?
Good question, Councilman Martin. So what we find is there are multiple manufacturers in the states that deal with either red light cameras or even what we're calling speed cameras. What I want to make clear is to understand that under Colorado law, a speed camera is different than a red light camera. A red light camera is something that's stationary that stays put. It is an automated process to where an individual runs a red light. It is then sent through typically a company that manages that, and then you receive a violation in the mail. What you see on the speed cameras is it still has to be, an individual still has to be in the vehicle. It will take a photograph and it will record the speed. An officer or an individual, an employee has to verify that. And then again, if it's an error, they cancel it out. If it's good to go, they check it off. And then again, you would get it into the mail. So when we talk about speed cameras, I just want to make it clear it's not on a pole and it's not unmanned. It still has to be manned according to Colorado law. So there are different manufacturers out there that would do it. But in essence, what you're looking at with this sound system, it is the only one that we can find in the world that is unique to this type of software. And so again, there's what's called Generation 1. Again, it has its flaws. This is Generation 2. And in talking to the company, they're constantly looking and updating their technology. And so they're working very closely with New York. We have their contact information with New York PD. We just haven't reached out to them yet. We really wanted to get council's direction on that to see what they're doing. But New York PD is really helping this company kind of get its foot into the United States and what that looks like. So again, we only know of about two cities on the East Coast that have tried this. We would be the only one that I know of right now on the West Coast or West side of the country that be using this technology. So you're actually looking at different vendors for the sound, and then probably maybe one vendor for both the red light and speed stuff.
Okay, so the answer is not to do it.
Correct. There's not one vendor for all of it. Correct. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now that brought a question to my mind.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I just need clarification. David, when you said that we wouldn't have to purchase it, I assume you were talking only about the trial period?
That is correct, Mayor.
Would there be a possible, because as Zach had just said that they will be upgrading the technology on this, is there any way to lease them through a lease program rather than so that we would have the updated?
Yes, Mayor. There is a leasing program that you can do in lieu of purchasing.
Okay. I would like to look into that as well.
Okay, absolutely. We can bring back those numbers for you as well.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mayor Peck, City Council, our goal is, based on your direction this evening, is to get this device, set it up in several areas within the city of Longmont, and then bring that information back to you in a report, a staff report, showing you what we found, Again, downtown will be one of those areas. As you know, we receive a lot of complaints there. I would ask that if you have certain areas within your districts or wards, if there's something that you want to specifically look at, we'll try to consolidate that, and in that 30-day period, get an opportunity to move that device there to address whatever that noise issue is, so we can get a good baseline on that. But we will be coming back with a staff report on that for you.
And to be clear, no warnings, no citations. This is baselining.
Okay. Do we want to let the public know, or do we want it to be, well, since we're not, well, it's a public meeting, but how many people are listening?
So it's certainly up to the council's direction. Again, like City Manager Dominguez said, we won't be issuing any citations or warnings.
That was made tongue in cheek.
Okay, yes, ma'am. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and one more thing. Do you want us to email you with the areas of town that we are finding?
Yes, ma'am. If you'll email those to us, we'll try to get a consolidated list. We'll get those back to you where we're going to put it up and use it once we get the device, and we'll try to hit everybody's area as much as possible.
Great.
All right. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. So we have one more presentation. This is by Valerie Dodd, and it is a camera project. Over to you.
Mayor, Council, I'm actually going to introduce it. We have a.
I'm sorry. Oh, you're right.
Where is it? The middle one? So I'm going to introduce this. We worked on this, and you can see James Brown, Dave Moore, and Valerie Dodd on this one. I believe that James is going to give the presentation. Valerie's here. I wanted to explain a little bit in terms of, you're seeing the security camera project, and you see Valerie here, and Valerie goes, can you tell them why I'm part of this? And it was pretty simple. As we were looking at the cameras, one of the things that we constantly run into when we're looking at these projects is connectivity, and how do we get it into a system. And the piece that we really talked about is really working and using Nextlight as the backbone for the technology that we have, and how we pull that data back into a system where we can get this, get it to our computers. And so Valerie's really jumped in on that piece to bridge a gap, because it just seemed like every time we looked at anything, that sort of became the issue. And so she's working to really look with Nextlight staff in terms of how we look at this, how we look at the backhaul component of it. And then James and Dave are here to talk about the cameras in the parks. Dave's going to talk about license plate recognition cameras. We kind of touched on it before. And so I'm going to turn it over to James right now. James?
Good evening, Mayor Peck, council members. I'm going to, James Brown, Assistant Chief Public Safety. I'm just going to take us through an overview of what the camera project is and our plan as we move forward. So first of all, just want to touch on kind of the current situation that we're seeing. We have a number of incidences in public places impacting our residents' ability to feel secure, and a lot of those incidents taking place in parks and green spaces, as well as other locations in the city. A number of those are in the downtown areas and around the city, like I mentioned. One of the challenges law enforcement runs into is oftentimes we get called after something has already happened, and absent an eyewitness or some other information on scene, it becomes difficult for us to identify who is responsible for the criminal activity that we're talking about. And our goal through this program is it's to increase public safety. It's really twofold. It's first is to hopefully deter things from happening to begin with, and then when things do happen, to give us additional tools in order to conduct investigations, follow up, and hold those accountable who are committing crimes. This is just a brief overview of the different type of incidents we've had inside and outside of our parks. Tonight we're really focusing on some specific areas, and when we looked at identifying where would be the first locations we want to install these cameras and start using them. We took a data-driven approach where we looked at the incident rate that we were encountering and tried to identify those areas where these would have the most impact. And so this is some of the data that we looked at in order to identify those areas. This is a heat map that's kind of showing the data and is giving you an indication of some of the hot spots where we have a large amount of recorded incidents. So our approach is to place security cameras in public places. These security cameras, like I mentioned before, the hope is that they help deter criminal activity in these areas, but they will monitor the areas and then aid us in investigation if something does occur. Our game plan is to start with 2 initial locations and then expand from that. The first 2 would be in Landing Park and Carr Park, and then expand additional cameras into Clark Centennial, Kensington, and Lou Miller. Once we wanted to start off with a smaller amount of cameras so that we could really identify any unknown issues that we may run into with the equipment or with the installation. And then once we feel comfortable with that and have a good understanding of what that looks like, we'd like to expand it into other areas, including other parks and greenways, the downtown area, alleyways and parking lots, arteries in and out of town, major intersections. Again, really highlighting those areas where we're seeing a high occurrence of incidents that would be captured with the cameras. We are currently working on an agreement with a vendor that we'd like to use. This vendor is being utilized in multiple other municipalities throughout the country, including some here in Colorado. Basically, they would provide the cameras and house the recordings on a cloud-based recording system. And then the funding for these cameras that we're looking at are coming out of existing funds from Parks, Public Safety, and the LDDA budget. So a couple of highlights of what the plan will do and what the program will not do. First of all, it will have very strict access and usage policy. Use data to determine the camera locations. Use cameras for real-time monitoring and for recording. The benefits of some of the real-time monitoring is to, for example, if we were to get a call for service in a particular area where we had one of these cameras, the ability to give those responding officers or public safety personnel that are responding there real-time information that we're able to capture before the officers are on scene. Excuse me. All of the recordings from the cameras would be stored for 14 days unless they contain evidentiary value, at which point they would be a copy of that segment of it would be downloaded and logged into evidence and would follow our normal evidence procedures. Well, Dave will talk about the license plate recognition technology in just a moment. As mentioned, being able to connect these is an important aspect of it. They're going to connect through NextLight infrastructure. They're powered over Ethernet. They'd be installed on existing city infrastructure. And our goal with this is that this would be transparent. And so these cameras, and I'll show you an example of what they may look like. They're not hidden cameras. They're not covert cameras. They would be easily recognizable. And a piece of that, too, would be mentioning the cameras and locations on Public Safety's website. And then part of the program would be a consideration to extend or expand out to other community partners. Once we have an agreement in place and can go through more of the details of what that looks like, it'll better kind of explain that. The cost per camera, the initial estimates were about $3,000 to $5,000 per camera. That includes the service fee and the installation of those cameras. However, now that we've been able to kind of develop and see some of the different installation costs, that number, we anticipate in many cases that number being lower than that 3,000 mark. Just again, every install is a little bit different, so trying to determine how we're going to connect it, what we've got to bring in order to make that connection. What this program will not do, these cameras will not use facial recognition technology. They will not be used to target any particular demographic of the community. None of the recordings will be sold or be unauthorized sharing of any of the footage. And the cameras don't use predictive behavioral analysis. So here's an example of kind of what the cameras look like. There are multiple different camera options. The main one would be the 25x optical zoom, and it's a pan tilt camera, meaning that it's got the ability to rotate 360 degrees, move up and down, zoom in and out. They're all high resolution, high definition cameras. They have an auto tracking function with them. So basically, what that does is the camera can recognize a person, not the identity of a person, but the fact that a person is present. And then, so think of like a park after hours or something like that, and a person's walking through. The camera can recognize that somebody is there, and then we'll track their movement for a predetermined amount of time that we program into the camera, and then it'll zoom back out to the wider image. The benefit of that is, when you've got cameras that just have the wide angles or the view, it's very difficult to be able to really tell who's on that camera or make any identifications of that. So the purpose of that is to be able to zoom in to get a closer look and then zoom back out. They do have infrared technology that allows for good imaging in low light situations. They have overall low bandwidth needs. They've proven to be very durable. I mentioned earlier they're powered over Ethernet, and they have redundant recording. So if they were to lose connectivity, we would still have the recording on the camera. So I'm going to step aside and let Dave Moore come up and talk about the license plate readers.
Mayor Peck, members of council, I'm David Moore. I'm the Assistant Chief over the Investigations Division. So I'm going to speak with you just briefly about LPRs, or automated license plate readers. It's technology that can read a license plate, send it through a database, and get us information on who owns the car based on registration, if it's stolen, and if there's some other technology that goes in there we'll get into. So these have been very successful. We have agencies around us that are using them right now, and we've actually used some of theirs for some of our crime solving. And Boulder, Westminster, and Lafayette are all in the process of getting LPRs, as well as many other agencies. They do test runs and trial periods that they get to try them out for a while. There's two main agencies, or two main companies that do the LPRs in our area, and one is vastly better than the other and is a sole source, and that's the one we'd be looking at getting. With these LPRs, we would get, the minimum is 10 cameras, and we would be able to hit every major arterial in and out of the city with those 10 cameras, and we'll show a map here in just a second. Those cameras will catch cars 4 lanes of traffic at up to 120 miles an hour, and read the license plates. The benefit of the RECOR model is it gets both front and back, and it will take video and stills. Some important features that we wanted to share are that when it comes to the data, it is not sold to any company, and it is only shareable with other law enforcement agencies if we enter into an MOU with them. So they would be allowed to use our data, and we have been allowed to use other LE agency data to help in our crime as well. So some of the crimes we've seen this benefit is we had the earlier Postal Service incident from late last year. We had probably the biggest one we had was a bank robbery where we didn't know the suspect, but we could have identified them much quicker. And also, we believe there was an unidentified driver in that vehicle we're still working on. So this would take video and the stills of the license plates, and it would. The other benefit we have is that if you know the car you're looking for, it will actually identify it and send you a message saying this car just went through this intersection. As a for instance, with the arson up at the Life Clinic, we had another similar incident down in Boulder at the same within the same time period. They had a license plate reader and were able to identify the vehicle that was involved in that incident, where we didn't, and we're still looking to work on that identification. So that just shows how they can benefit. The final one I'll share with, well, two more I'll share with you. One
is you've heard of, I'm sure you've heard of the street racer groups. So what this technology can do, not only will it get the license plate, but it will say these cars went through this intersection and they also went through this intersection, so they're probably associated. And we could have gotten license plates for all 20, 30, 40 cars that went, and we'd be able to follow up with that. So with the, pardon me. So the other thing we can do, not only does it download 4 times from the national and Colorado-based data. So when an agency has a stolen vehicle, we entered into CCIC, and 4 times a day the cameras will go out and download that data. So we have basically every 6 hours we would have that information. Not only does it allow for that, but we can put our own hot list in. So if we have a suspect we're looking for, or suspects, a stolen vehicle, we can enter it immediately, and it will look for our hot list as well, or anyone around us. If they call us and say, here's a bolo for this vehicle, we can enter into our system, and it will notify us when it sees it. So it can operate at daytime and nighttime effectively, and the technology is very impressive. The images of the people driving the car is very clear. Again, like the other cameras, we won't use the facial recognition. It just gets us an image so we can compare it to, maybe we have a suspect in a case, or maybe it's the registered driver, and we can look at the driver's license and see if they look similar. So this is the map where we are proposing to put the different, it'd be 2 cameras at each intersection. So there's 5 intersections you see there, the main arterials, and that would catch the traffic in both directions coming and going. But if we do enter into a contract, the people that work in the company will come out and actually help us place them based on data. So this is just tentative. This is where we think they would be most helpful. But they may come out and say, well, you'd get better reads from, say, farther south on Main as opposed to at Main and Ken Pratt. So with that, I will turn it over to James again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to summarize our timeline, and then I'll wrap this up. So this has been a project that we've been working on for the last several months, and been trying to get this up and running as quickly as possible. Our hope is to finalize the agreement with the vendor within the next week or 2, and then order our first shipment of cameras for those first 5 locations that we spoke about. The turnaround time on the cameras from the time we place the order with the vendor and the time we get them is about a week, and then it would be whatever time it takes us to get those installed. And then, as I talked about earlier, we will determine what additional sites based off of the data, and prioritize that based off of what the data is indicating on where these cameras would be the most beneficial. So with that, I know that was a lot of information that we threw out, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or we've got other resources here as well.
And I wanted to jump in real quick. I think while we have public safety presenting, obviously Valerie's been part of this. This is really something that was also born out of the work that we've done as part of our neighborhood impact team, and the work that we've been doing specifically at Carr and Lanyon Park, and really looking at these issues. And it's about much more. It's about, I remember we had a conversation with council about vandalism at our parks, and he said, what's the number? And the 500,000, over the last few years is correct. And so there's also a point where the cost associated with vandalism in our facilities is driving a lot of expense, and so we need to manage this. It's also the neighborhoods that we work with. We can tell you a neighborhood where an individual calls us when the sun goes down based on issues on a regular basis. And I think on top of it, when you look at the use of technology, we've touched on this, when we're in a position right now where when you have high volumes, you have the employment world that we're in, you have all of these issues, really this technology is bridging a gap because we can't always have somebody at a certain place. And this is really allowing us to expand our resources and be more proactive in dealing with the issues that our community is bringing to our attention.
Great. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I have two questions. First, the presentation on the cameras for the park said that they've proven to be durable in the field. What features of them prevent vandalism specifically to have people disable the camera's video feed?
Councilmember Martin, thank you for the question. The information that I'm getting is from the vendor that we're working with, and they've had these cameras installed in hundreds of locations throughout the country. During that time, they've had one camera that has been damaged and needed to be replaced by vandalism. They have housing that protects the camera. I don't know that I could tell you exactly what the housing's made out of, but it's a durable housing that can stand up to weather. They're waterproof cameras. And then part of that is with the installation of the cameras too, is installing them in areas that would make them less prone to being able to be reached or to that vandalism. I'm not saying that it can't happen. And then the other part of it though too is when we talk about the deterrence aspect of the cameras, is anybody who is attempting to vandalize the camera, the last image, if they're able to destroy the camera, the last image that's going to be captured is the person who's vandalizing the camera. And so based off of, we did some site visits with some other municipalities that have these, that have had them now for multiple years, and they're just not seeing the occurrences of vandalism on the cameras. But again, not to say that it won't happen, but we're just not seeing it, and the organization's not seeing it. So all of the cameras do have warranties that come with them, and that covers some replacement and everything like that as well too. But.
Okay, thank you. That was a good answer. Director Dodd, tell me or tell us about Backhaul, because I'm suspecting we don't have fiber to the camera, so how do you get the video signal from the camera to the next light infrastructure?
That's a great question.
We can take it from there.
So good evening, Valerie Dodd, Executive Director of Nextlight. So Mayor Peck, Council Member Martin. The answer is we have fiber, like Lanyon Park, with fiber terminates about 20 feet away from where we're wanting to place the camera. Mm-hmm. So we're going to put and I can't give you a lot more detail than this, but a 5 megahertz Wi-Fi, it's basically a radio that will attach, and then you'll have one on the pole, and so you'll use a Wi-Fi signal to connect the two devices. So obviously fiber is not going to terminate at all locations, so we will use the Wi-Fi radios where possible. Now, when we start talking about the downtown locations, we will be probably leveraging our LTE network, which is the one that we're using for the St. Vrain Valley School District. So we will probably have coverage there, and we might be able to have just one LTE device propagate far enough to really cover and enable all of the cameras that we plan to place within the downtown area. So basically, fiber will be in very close proximity in most situations, and then otherwise it's either a Wi-Fi radio technology or an LTE cellular type technology.
Okay, so based on characteristics of the site, you have two alternative solutions.
We do, and then some sites will even have 4 cameras, and so we'll just need one Wi-Fi radio receiver that will cover all of the cameras within the vicinity. So, yeah, we're still working through the remainder of that.
Good, thank you. That's very reassuring.
Oh, absolutely.
Part of what Valerie and I have been discussing, too, is via the utilization of LTE, if we approach, and we've got work to do on this, but as we approach it and really look at that implementation piece, that actually not only lets us deal with cameras, but it starts letting us deal with multiple systems that we have within an organization. Mm-hmm. And so some of this will be learning through so we can capitalize and actually use technology in a different way where we don't have connection now.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor Beck. So my question really, I believe I understand why Lanyon and car parks were the first two chosen based on recent history that we've kind of heard about in the last few years. But based on the heat map, it seems like there might have been some other parks that would have been considered based on just being hotter sites per se. For instance, it looked like Kanemoto had quite a bit of, incidences that had occurred there. So I was just wondering, based on just that heat map, just didn't quite look like it vibed with choosing Lanyon and Carr first. Just curious. I guess maybe more for other folks listening, the impetus behind those first two choices.
Thank you very much for the question. The best way I can answer that is in the heat map and in the diagram we're showing that's capturing all of the incidents that we've had. But then the next piece of that is kind of dialing it in and taking a look at what are the different types of calls or the different types of incidents that occurred within those numbers, and really trying to identify those ones that we feel like we'd get the best impact by having the cameras in place. And so, that's a broad overview, and putting together the presentation, it was trying to give a sample of kind of the data that we take a look at in order to determine these locations, but then really drilling down and trying to determine again, the type, what area, and in this one we're talking about parks, but what area in the park are we seeing it? Are they consolidated in a particular area? Are they spread out among the area? So just trying to take a look at those different factors, and then obviously taking a look at other factors that play into that, try to decide where the best locations are in order for us to get the biggest impact. Okay.
And the other thing is real-time information comes in and it says we need to relook and we need to add. And so that's happening too based on information that we're getting from different areas. We specifically talked about Lanyon and Carr. You saw 3 other parks that we're looking at based on other situations. And I think that's going to be the case is we're going to be learning real time on this one and having to make adjustments based on activities that we're seeing, and priorities may shift for us based on what we're seeing within the community.
Thank you for that presentation. Do you need direction from us to go ahead and purchase these cameras, or are you doing it anyway?
Council funded this in last year's budget, and so what we wanted to do, and I asked them to do this, is because we didn't want to be covert about this. We wanted to be upfront and transparent.
Great.
We know we had this in the budget process, and so we wanted to let you all know. We wanted to go over what we were going to do, and then see if you all had any questions or concerns. But no, we have the money budgeted via council, and that's something we could do operationally. But this is more updating you and updating the community to say we're moving down this road.
Great. Glad to hear it. Thank you for the presentation. We have one more presentation. Does staff or council need a break before we go on, or shall we power through? Okay. Aaron Fosdick is going to give a presentation on an annexation referral.
Good evening, Mayor Peck, members of council. I am wearing my glasses, but the screen is really small, so sorry about that. Aaron Fosdick, I'm a principal planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. Tonight I'm here with an annexation referral for 8513 St. Rain Road. I believe the applicant, Jack Bestall, is also in the audience, so if you have specific questions for the applicant, they are here. I have a short presentation tonight. Council will remember that we've done annexation referrals in the past. This is really a pre-step in the development process, really to ask council if they're interested in an applicant coming forward for annexation. This referral is for a property that's around 4 acres on the west side of town. You can see the vicinity map here. This is a linear property that is at the northeast corner of Airport and 9th Avenue. So it's just to the west of the Champion Green subdivision. It is within the Longmont planning area, and as council knows, that is the area in which Longmont essentially has indicated we will grow into at some point. So it is part of our future land use and transportation system map. It is designated as a residential area. It is designated as mixed neighborhoods, similar to the subdivision to the west. And I also want to mention that 9th Avenue and Airport Road are also designated as arterial roadways in the Envision Longmont plan. The applicant has submitted an initial concept plan that shows townhomes on this site, which is consistent with the land use guidance provided by Envision Longmont. Residential mixed neighborhoods, really the primary uses within that land use would be single-family attached, single-family detached, townhome products, similar to what's being shown here, within density ranges of 6 to 18 units per acre. Now, obviously, this is an initial discussion, so this concept plan is just that, a concept, but it does give council an idea of what's being proposed, which again is townhomes. About 57 townhomes are shown here. There's obviously some buffers, some landscaping, a small park and drainage area to the south. When Champion Greens was platted, there was a plan that those roadways would serve this property, and so you'll see those local roadway connections on the concept plan. Again, I just want to mention to council to remember that this is an early discussion. This would likely change. And this is a good chance for us to talk about what the process is and what council and the community can expect. So this is the discussion where council talks about whether or not it's in the public interest to refer this property into the annexation process. Your decision tonight does not obligate council to approve or not approve an annexation, but this is really, should the applicant basically be allowed to go through the process of statutory compliance and of DRC review. So if council refers this property tonight, the applicant would come back in for a pre-application meeting. We would also have a neighborhood meeting where we would notify any property owner within 1,000 feet of this property that the annexation was potentially being considered, and obviously we would have that neighborhood meeting. We would then allow the applicant to submit a full application. Again, annexations are major development applications. It would go through full development review committee review, so that would be reviewed by all of the city departments. Planning, public works, engineering, water, wastewater, affordable housing, building services, anyone that may have an interest in this, forestry. Once the DRC review was complete, a recommendation would be made. It would go to Planning Commission for a recommendation, then ultimately come back to City Council for a decision. There would be a public hearing associated with both of those meetings. Good time to mention that, as council knows, the development code spells out review criteria that any development application needs to meet. That's true for annexations as well. There would also be an annexation agreement prepared. Obviously, the applicant would need to satisfy all requirements before that annexation was finalized. Subsequent to any annexation is when actual development could occur. So there's a number of steps, and obviously council is aware of all of those. So tonight, council's options are basically determining that this is in the interest of the city to consider this annexation. Again, it is within our planning area. And we would refer the annexation. That means the developer could proceed with an actual annexation application. The other option is not authorizing staff to accept and process this annexation, finding that it's not in our best interest. So with that, I would welcome any questions that council may have, either for me or the applicant.
I don't see anybody in the queue. Oh, now I do. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. So outside of the concept plan, I believe multiple council members, I know that Harold has experienced a lot of questions concerning wildfire mitigation concerning this property. And we are limited in what we can do because it is not annexed into the city. And so annexation alone will help us consider and try to mitigate some of these risks, because it's my understanding the current property owner doesn't necessarily also have the financial ability to mitigate a lot of the fire risks that have been noted by neighbors. So I would say that it is in the best interest of the city to allow the annexation process to go forward.
Councillor Martin. No, Waters, I'm sorry.
I know we're hard to tell apart sometimes.
I wasn't going to mention that, but.
So, Aaron, I don't know if these questions are for you or for Jack, but I have a couple. Our ordinance no longer calls out specific extraordinary benefits. However, we get a chance to ask about benefits and how extraordinary those might be. And I know that in this case, the applicant in other project has proposed what I think to be, I don't know if they're extraordinary, but they're very attractive features in proposed developments, like child care space, like zero carbon neighborhoods. So I have that specific question. Are any of those features proposed in this? I know we're way early in this process, and this is going to potentially change, but those are questions I'll have when it comes back if we can't answer those tonight, number one, or number ones and two. The other question is, when we, a few months ago, approved, I guess my question would be this: in this case, would the applicant bring water rights to dedicate, or would the applicant be paying cash in lieu of donating water rights? And maybe that's a question for Jack.
Mayor Peck, Councilmember Waters, I'll ask Jack to come up. I will say with regard to the third question, the applicant will be doing one or both of those things with regard to water because we require it.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure exactly what the water situation is. I assume you are. So I'll let the applicant speak to those questions.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Peck, Councilman Waters, Councilman Martin, whoever's question.
She has the same question. I just asked.
I know. I can't tell you apart either. No, it's an age thing, maybe. No, there are water rights, I believe, with the property. Obviously, they wouldn't have done such a good job with planting trees and having a wonderful garden without it. So that's probably in the mix, like Aaron mentioned, and we would be required to do it. We haven't spelled out energy conservation or carbon footprints yet. We haven't looked into child care. Our main interest right now is this is a narrow property. How do we go about that? But that's certainly something we're going to look at as we move forward.
Well, I know you've been responsive with other applicant or other projects,
right.
and I know that's out there. But the water question is more timely, I think. And if there's water to donate, that's one thing. If it's cash in lieu, we put the city manager in a position to charge for every acre foot, regardless of the kind of application for the development of land that's going to be annexed, which I think was a mistake at the time. Not that it's bad policy, but we should have created options for the city manager to waive that fee if somebody's proposing this very kind of project. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's going to be an important question here going forward, not in terms of approving agreeing to the referral, but this leading to the annexation and development of property that is aligned with our priorities for both affordable and attainable housing.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about. Becky and I have talked about that as it relates to affordable and attainable, and as we continue moving through the work, that's something we're going to bring to council to look at.
Yeah, to turn this question into a statement, I think we ought not to be requiring somebody who's proposing to say yes to our question about can you bring us the kind of housing we need, and then charge them more than we need to for the water, for the cash in lieu that they're going to pay.
And Councilmember Waters, and for the rest of council, I will just mention for your information, anytime we have an annexation that comes to the city, Water Resources is part of our development review team, and so they will be reviewing this application, working closely with the applicant to turn over that historic water. If there's any deficits, those would be satisfied at the time of final plat. So we have some time to work through that.
Seeing no other questions or comments, thank you, Aaron. We need a motion. Go ahead.
I'll move approval of the referral.
Okay. Do we have a second? Second. So it was moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor, let's vote. So that carries, and it's been referred for annexation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're now at final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anybody in the public that would like to come up? Seeing none, we'll move on to mayor and council comments. Councilors have any comments that they would like to? Seeing none, we're going to move on to city manager remarks.
No comments, Mayor, Council.
Attorney remarks.
None, Mayor, Council.
Thank you. Well, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor Waters, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor vote. Or whether you're not. So that passed unanimously.